name is Miranda Agee, and I'm the moderator for this panel this afternoon. I'm also the Business Development Director at SMI Construction. We're a high-end boutique residential construction firm in New York City. Before that, I was a magazine editor for 11 years at many of the publications our amazing panelists have been a part of, past, present, and most definitely future. I will let them introduce themselves first, and then we'll go right into questions. We have a half an hour, and hopefully if you guys have any questions at home, you can figure out how to type them to me, and I will read them off if we have time. So to get us started, Chad, please introduce yourself.
So I'm Chad James. I am based in Nashville, Tennessee, and I own the Chad James Group. We're 9 years old. We're a staff of 7 right now. And we work all over the United States, Cayman Islands, all over Mexico, blah, blah, blah. And I'm originally from a little town called Muscle Shoals, Alabama, very southern music town that's very well known. And so lived in New York for a while, and then actually made my home in Nashville in 2004, finally. So
great. Thanks so much, Chad. Elizabeth?
I'm Elizabeth Lawrence. I'm a partner at Bunny Williams. I've been there for 16 years. I was an intern there. I've been with Bunny forever. I'm originally from Delaware. I live on the Upper East Side. I walk to work, which is great. Currently, I'm in Westchester, Pennsylvania, staying in my brother and his wife's guest house. My husband and I were lucky to get out of the city and come to the country and take daily walks. So that's me right now.
Great. Thanks so much. Stacey, last but not least.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Stacy Garcia, and I own 2 companies. I own a textile business called Libatex, which was named for my great-grandmother, and her name actually translates into love. And so that was something we're, really gonna dig into right now, with sort of the whole why behind, and hope that all these good angels that follow all of us around kind of protect us and bless us and our families and our businesses. So we provide commercial quality textiles through the interior design community. And then I also own a design studio, a design agency, where we develop products both under license and private label to be sold into market. So I have different brands that we work on that we sell into the marketplace.
Great. And did you mention where you're coming in?
Oh, I forgot. I'm outside of New York City. So I'm in the lower Hudson Valley. It's very pretty, close enough to Manhattan. But just like Elizabeth, at this point, we can kind of try to get out and take some walks and connect with nature.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So the first question I have for everyone is kind of a blanket question, but we've all kind of been in quarantine now for 30, 40 days. Chad, maybe not as many for you, but we all are kind of feeling it at this point. When you're managing your team, what did you do day 1, week 1 that is no longer working, and how have you mitigated that to change, and how is it working now? Elizabeth, do you have any insight into that?
I think one thing when I was thinking about this topic that we did that was really beneficial from the start is, before New York even shut down, we had a couple of meetings as a group to talk about what this would look like. Because for interior designers to work from home is just like, you're telling them to, basically, you're handicapping them in so many ways. You can't go get your samples. There's just, all the running around you do on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. So we had a couple of office meetings to talk about what would that look like? How would we do that? And I think now that we're so far into it, I've been able to see that was really beneficial to do a little bit of planning ahead. And at the time we thought, there's no way this is going to happen, but we should talk about it. And there have been some things that have been trial and error. I don't know that there's any one thing that hasn't really worked. It's just kind of trying things, and it's people being flexible and open to ways to communicate and move things back and forth.
Yeah, that makes sense. Stacey, what about you? What did you do in day 1, week 1 that just wasn't working, and you don't do it now, in terms of managing your team remotely?
Yeah, same thing. I think just because we're all located in the New York area, things happened a little quicker than they did in other parts of the country. We had vendors who sort of were like, what are you guys getting all crazy over? And then 3 weeks later, they realized what was happening, you know, or that it kind of made its way toward their factories or their locations. I would say one of the things that we started implementing on our end were these team huddles, because in the beginning it felt a little more siloed and a little less connected. Okay. So we started to just schedule meetings at more regular cadence, using technology and things like that.
How many days a week are you doing that?
So with our design team, we do a morning huddle. Okay. So every morning at 9:15, we do a morning huddle. And then with our other team, we do a once a week, like all hands on deck meeting. And then it forced us with certain things that I think you take for granted. Like Elizabeth said, you know, it's not just the tactile quality of being a designer, but also the ability, and I'm sure Chad relates to it as well, when you're in a team and you have 7 people, or even if you have one other person, it doesn't matter. If you have one other person that you're used to being able to lean across your desk and say, hey, what do you think of this? And that goes away. You really do need to change not only the meeting structure, you know, but I think building structure for us into these are the things that we took for granted that we got done because we were in close proximity. Okay, in order to keep to our timelines, this is now becoming a standing meeting. So I think we were almost forced to build a little more structure, even though we have a process, obviously. I didn't realize how some pieces of those process just became how close you were in proximity to each other. And once we were separate, it forced us to say, oh, wait a second, this has to become part of the process now. A little more formalized.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Chad, what about you? What was working or what didn't work, and how have you changed it?
So what didn't work from the beginning was trying to micromanage, which I'm not. I'm not a micromanager. But when you see people on a day in, day out, and you know, people leave and you can go to their desk and kind of look what they're working on and kind of at your own pace. It's a bit difficult when you're home and you have no way of knowing what the productivity level is. Right. So I took on a huge amount of responsibility from the very beginning, and I was holding on to so much intel that I wouldn't divvy it out to my team. Right. So until it got to a point that I took it to, you know, so far, and then handed them to the finishing things. And what I learned, you know, after many nights of, you know, 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. and trying to keep things going was, okay, this isn't going to work, buddy. You only have so much bandwidth, and you have a great team. So what you have to do is you have to enable your group to be successful in their decisions and what they're doing, as well as encourage people along the way and understand that mistakes are going to happen in this. Yeah. And just, you know, band together, hold each other's hand, and realize that we're going to walk through this journey and figure it out. And that's what we've done. I mean, the micromanaging thing, though, that it doesn't work. It just doesn't.
It's almost impossible, right?
We started just sort of a shared, one of the other things, because you just sparked it and it might be helpful, you know, for those of you who are tuning in and watching, or, you know, for the other panelists, we started a Google Docs, you know, basically project management list, and then separating things out from goals that would be weekly or monthly goals, and then breaking them down into what we were calling to-dos, things that had to be done this week. And so it's now a shared document. Again, these are things that we weren't necessarily having to use when we were all in close proximity to each other, but it's given a lot more visibility to the team and accountability, like you said, so that your team members know what is due this week, what's really the priority for the day and the week. So that's been really helpful for us.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of piggybacking off that point, now that everyone's working from home, what does productivity look like for you? What does productivity look like for your team? And how do you communicate to them?
So, you know, I'll jump in here.
Go ahead.
You know, for us, much like you, Stacey, we have a group meeting every morning at 10:30, like to give everybody a kind of a moment to get their stuff together. And, you know, we sign on, and some mornings, though, those conversations are, how's everyone doing? And every single person's like, yeah, we're okay. We're okay. I'm like, no, you're not. I can tell. And so I'm very much about communication. And I know a lot of people say that, but I want to know the good, the bad, the ugly. I want to know it all. Because if I know all aspects of what's going on, then I know how to prepare myself and I also know how to prepare and feed my team the work that they have in front of them. Whereas if you got someone that's dealing with the emotional side of this, because we're in week 5 of this, a little less than what you guys are.
Yeah.
And we were early to the game in Tennessee. But we all had that first week of what in the hell are we doing? You call it working from home. That first week and a half, there was no working from home. It was trying to figure out, how you even maneuver. And I'm 23 years into this industry and I have never worked from home. I have a very strict, when I leave the office, I leave it there. Sometimes I draw from home, but when it's quiet, but at the same time, I leave everything there. And it was that moment in that first week and a half where I literally rearranged my office here, and I have an office at home, but I rearranged it 3 times. And it's like, you couldn't find the groove of how it was all going to, it was all going to work. So,
yeah. So how is it working?
You finally figured it out
now? Your productivity?
We are, productivity is really great. I will say we have gone through a couple of different reiterations of how we manage ourselves. We instituted a daily worksheet, basically, or task report. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Everyone was like, I don't want to add this. But what it does for me as the principal is I've got other people working on things. They know where they are in the pipeline. I have no way of knowing. So I'm sitting over here just piling work on, and getting people stressed out because I don't know where they are. So what we've done is we've created this daily worksheet, kind of like what you said. It's just ongoing to-do list per project. And then it's sent to me every day and I review it, and I'm able to answer questions and able to, the next morning when we're starting out, they're looking through it and they've already got their answers many times. As you guys all know, we all travel, before all this happened, but one of the hardest things in a flourishing, busy design firm is getting time with the senior or with the principal. It's just, we have, our pie is sliced into these little bitty slivers. And so you really have to be diligent about spending the time that you need with your staff. So before this, and still, we have Tuesday meetings where, and people have heard me talk about this before, but every Tuesday, everyone on my staff gets an hour or an hour and a half with me. And some weeks they need that hour and a half, some weeks they need less. And so it just kind of works out. But it's their one-on-one time with me, so that all of these questions to keep our projects moving can be answered. And then I'm not interrupted 19,000 times. Yeah. So to answer your question, we've still been trying to do that. But instead of just having it on a Tuesday, we're having these morning meetings and we're all discussing as a group.
Wonderful.
And it's very helpful.
Yeah.
It keeps us, if this is the first time in now years, I've at least, I have I'm like
your calendar.
I'm stationary. And so I tell everybody, I was like, listen, take advantage of it. Right now's the time, So I feel like that, those lists and those meetings and just being pure, just being truthful with yourself about how you're feeling and about how, as creatives, I think there's this misnomer that we're creative all the time and we're not. And some days we're jazzed and some days we're not. And so it's just very important, especially right now, since we're all apart, just to speak your truth and let people know, hey, I'm powering through today, but just so it's just all about keeping everyone informed.
Yeah, great. Elizabeth, I'm curious to know about what productivity looks like for you and what you expect from your team and how you communicate that to them.
So we also do a Monday Zoom call every Monday morning, check in with the design teams. And then within that group, there's individual teams of 3 people. So they all have their daily check-ins, but we have like an overall check-in on Mondays. And a lot of times, it's like the same thing that Chad was saying, it's how are you? What have you been cooking? Send me that recipe. Because we miss each other, right? We spend so much time with each other. Everyone wants to be back in the office with each other. We miss each other. And, and it's about that human interaction. Some people are alone completely. So it's nice to have that kind of little bit of time. We go around, and say, what's everyone doing? What's your, and then we talk about what are you working on this week? We talk about who has meetings with Bunny and clients. What kind of meetings are they? Are they a dial-in? Are they a Zoom? Architectural? We kind of go through the list of where everyone is. And then individually, each team does that on a daily basis. But it's just really great. You get to see each other's face. You get to, have that check-in. And it's about the people right now, right? It's about each other. Like at the end of this, we're going to get through this because we got through it together.
Right.
And that's been really big for me. And I think, we have a list that our accounting office sends out each week, every Monday, that shows what each team has done for proposals and what's gone out and what's come in. So that's a really big place where I check in and I see what's going on. And then I check in with the teams and I'm like, hey, okay, you had a lot of maybe hourly billing last week, but where's the, where are you in this stage with furniture and lighting? And so, there's a few lists but those check-in calls are huge.
Yeah. How many people do you have, Elizabeth?
We're about 14.
Yeah.
Let's go around the board. Chad, you're how many?
7.
And Stacy, you said you were 16?
16.
Yep. Okay. So about the same nice little group there of people that you manage. Talk to me a little bit about client relationships. I know it's, we're talking about working remotely, but your clients are such a huge chunk of your business. How are you keeping them engaged? How are you kind of keeping them at ease with the work and everything that's going on? Stacy, do you deal with that at all?
You know what? It's become, as we've pivoted and started to navigate through this whole thing, one of the top goals every single week. So there's so much that we cannot control in this crisis. There's so much that is changing really on a daily basis. And it can be very, very stressful as a business owner, as an employee, and it's stressful for everybody. One of the things though that we, said early on is we can only control the things we can control, right? So one of the things that's on that list is our ability to reach out, as both of you echoed, kind of really prioritize our relationships with people, with our clients, with our vendors, with our sales reps, and the team. We've been talking about the productivity tools we're using, so I feel connected to my team, but it's been making a very proactive push early on to be in touch with people. And it's interesting because we've taken a two-pronged approach. Like we are incorporating technology into some of that, using some of our email systems, obviously social media, but putting together almost offers for our core clients, for our partners, saying, here's, we want to offer you consultation, like free of charge. What can we do to help you create marketing pieces? Because it's one of the strengths that our company has. It's not just designing, it's also, we do a really good job as a marketing house. So we're offering that to our partners as just a value add, as a way that we can come in and help them maybe alleviate stress and come up with creative ideas. So, and then the second piece of it is really making a push to make sure we have everybody's home contact information, knowing that everybody, I would say 80% of our clients are working from home. There are definitely people who are like, no, we're on a skeleton crew, but we're still coming in. But making sure that we have the right place. So if somebody wants a sample, it's not going to the office by accident. And then the third piece, quite frankly, is old school. I mean, I'm working the phones, like, we were joking and I'm like, I'm working the phones like a beast this week. Like, where normally you're connected, as the principal also, we kick off our relationships. My relationships are typically with the CEOs or the presidents and the owners, and, you schmooze and then you do the handoff. And as long as things are going smooth, you're there at the beginning, at the middle for a check-in, and at the end to say congratulations. And then I oversee things with my team every week. So I'm involved in the process, I'm sure very much like Bunny is, or Chad, like you are. But otherwise I have a high trust level. I mean, our creative director's been with us 14 years, so she is certainly empowered to move these projects along. At this point, it's, like I said, working the phone, it's picking up and not seeing what I can sell anybody. It's truly, what can I do to help you? How are you? Is everybody okay? Because that connection it's everything.
So it sounds like
your relationship, you got nothing.
You're maintaining your client base through personal connection at this point. Yeah.
You have to. You want to get through this? I mean, anyone watching, you want to get through this, you got to be working the phones. You can't make face-to-face calls during this. In other recessions and other retractions, face-to-face meetings are gold. today you can't do that.
Elizabeth, are you doing anything differently or the same as Stacy in that regard?
You know, I think we're just trying to, you know, make sure that our clients know we're there for them. And, you know, I think some people think you're just sitting at home waiting to talk to them, you know, but we do have so many meetings there. You know, the day is quite busy. It takes longer to do the things than it would if you were in the office, right? So when a client reaches out to me and says, hey, you know, can we, you know, we touched base last week, can we touch base this week? Like, I try to make sure, like, I give them the first available option, because that's important. And they're the ones that, they're the reason we're in business. They're the ones we're here for. And, you know, so you've got to make sure you're taking that time out of your day and getting on the phone. And, you know, a lot of times there's just questions of like, when do we think this is going to end? When do we think the workrooms are going to get back up and working? Yeah. You know, and it's giving them the best possible information you have in that moment, with the expectation that you don't really know, none of us really do, and that it changes on a daily basis. You know, and that's what we all want to talk to each other and say, well, what do you think? You know, and so, you know, in projects in New York City, the buildings have shut down, the construction projects, you know, our clients are antsy to get those back up and running. But, you know, everyone also understands that, like, the first priority is everyone's health and safety. And that's a really kind of wonderful thing to see in a time like this, that everyone understands that.
Right. Chad, anything that you're doing differently to maintain your client relationships and manage them from afar?
So, you know, from the very beginning, so much of our work is outside of Nashville. So we've been doing a lot of these things already. But one thing that I did the first week was I took a few hours and just sat down with stationery and a pen. And I literally sat down and I wrote just note after note after note. And it was just real simple. You know, there was no big fluff. It was like, listen, you know that we appreciate you and brighter days are ahead, you know? And it was just a nod to all of our clients to say, hey, listen, we haven't forgotten you. We're all going to get through this together. There are brighter days ahead. We're all going to learn from this. We're all going to be stronger and better. We know all that. But it really was taking a moment just to spend the time to send handwritten notes to everyone. Same thing with my vendors and my subcontractors. I mean, I have subcontractors that I have been working with and craftsmen that I've been working with for so many years. Yeah. And what I did from the very beginning is I talked to all of my clients and I said, listen, your project is at this point. We know that we have these things that need to be manufactured or these things that need to happen. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to be able to contact our subs and our craftsmen and say, hey, listen, what's your workload? If you don't have work, you need to tell me first, because the last thing I want is for someone that I've worked with for 15 years who's a master craftsman at something to go out of business. Because then I'm stepping into a position where I'm having to recreate and refine and relearn and teach someone, you know, how I want things done. Right. So in the very beginning, those conversations with our clients were so important in that first couple of weeks, so that they knew that we were thinking forward and that we weren't just concerned with us and how we were surviving, but that we were really concerned with the people that we consider our team. And that's not just Chad James Group. I mean, that's the broader spectrum, even down to, I mean, like our fabric reps. And I mean, we've had multiple phone calls just saying, hey, listen, here's what we've got in the hopper. You know, if you need it right now, we're going to push it on through. And every single one of our clients said to me, absolutely, if there's something that we need to push forward, we'll do it because we're with you. We don't want people going out of business, which, you know, I think that speaks a lot of our clientele and who we work with.
Completely. I was just about to say that. Kind of bringing it back to your team now. I'm curious if there's in any way, have you witnessed your team grow? And so what would you attribute that to in terms of, you know, what we're going through and working from home? Elizabeth, anything that you can speak to on that?
You know, I was thinking about this, and I think we have a lot of self-starters, and that's a great thing. And sometimes that means that there's a lot of strong personalities, which is not always easy, but in a situation like this has just been phenomenal. You know, people have really just taken initiative and have said, you know, what can I do? A task has been given and they take it and they run with it. You know, I think everyone's very aware of the situation. I think everyone's very lucky to want to be doing work, they want to be contributing, and they know that they're lucky to be able to be doing that in a time when, you know, the numbers are just not looking good for a lot of people. So, you know, we, you know, Bunny and I talked about it from the beginning. Like, our main priority is all the people. It's, as Chad was saying, it's the vendors, it's the clients, it's the people, it's everyone. It's a huge group of people. And it's just been so fun kind of to see these strong personalities and where they've gone with that and how they've taken some things and run with it. And, you know, I mean, I think it says a lot about the team.
You know, you said something earlier that you have a lot on your team saying to you, asking you, what can I do to help? So how do you answer that? What have you been saying to them when they say something like that?
Well, you know, I've said to them, really sit down and look at your projects, see, like, deep dive on every single one of them. What can you be doing that, you know, sometimes when we're in the office, you know, some of these things that go by the wayside, right? Like, you know, the towels at the last minute, or the whatever it is, you know, that you don't have the time for. Like, really sit down and like investigate and everything that you can do, and reach out to the clients and say, you know, we want to make sure we're on top of this so that when things get back up and running, you know, everything goes full force ahead. And so that's been fun. People, you know, are looking and taking the time to do some things that when you're in an office with a lot of phone calls and a lot of daily face-to-face meetings, you maybe don't have the time to do. So.
Chad, what about you? What's your answer when someone on your team says, what can I do to help? What can I do?
Well, I'll tell you, we are, like I said, week 5 of this, and I really feel that we've started hitting our moment last week. And the first 3 weeks, I'm not saying we weren't working, because we were. It's just like I said in the beginning, we're trying to figure it out.
We're all in that same.
But last week, it's one of the, you know, I feel like that I started seeing like strides being made. Like you said, Elizabeth, you know, there's not the distraction of the office, and people are able to really dive into the creative process a little more, which I'm always pushing, because I get so exhausted with ever feeling like I'm repeating, or like I'm just like, you know, pillow number 7 and drapery number 4. You know, it's, you know, I remember being a really young designer and everything had to be just unique and special and everything. And then as you grow and your company grows, you know, I mean, our design is amazing and beautiful, but then also you're like, okay, how do I keep reinventing and keeping it fresh? And so I think that through this moment, what's happened is we have a lot of fresh eyes. People are our team is spending the time to, like you said, dig in, find other options, and really start designing deeper and better projects, which I'm very thankful for.
That's great. We have 2 minutes left. So Stacy, how are you answering that question when someone comes to you and says, what can I do?
Yeah, it's been, again, I'm fortunate that we have so many staff members who have been with us for so long, you know, for many years. So we have a really low attrition rate. And I have a staff of just whatever it takes. We've been implementing something called EOS, which is Entrepreneurial Operating System. We'd started that journey prior to COVID, fortunately, because we are, you know, then we're in a cadence of really great communication. But one of the exercises is sort of identifying your core values. And that was one of the things that really we discovered was one of our core values, whatever it takes. And I have a team that we've sort of unconsciously hired against that mentality, you know, people who are just really resourceful. And so I think this was not as much of a challenge because it's just in their, you know, genetic makeup to be whatever it takes kind of people. And I feel really blessed to have a team that lives it, you know, that's always lived it pre-COVID, and that's really, you know, willing to do that, to roll up their sleeves, to get creative about providing our client base, you know, with the samples they need, with the strike-offs they need, putting together packages. Like our team started to do an offer of curated packages, knowing that design firms are working from home, all fractured, you know, to be able to say, look, use us, let's collaborate, let's take some of that stress off of you, because we can pull from, you know, 15 different sample warehouses and pull things to you. Might get them like in Amazon style, like you might get 15 different boxes, but we can present it to you in a digital board and, you know, come up with creative solutions that we're just getting great feedback on. So, you know, I think it sounds like we're all in a similar situation. We're surrounded by talented teams and people who really do care about making it through this storm and coming out stronger than we were before.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for that, Stacey. That's a great way to end it. And I just want to thank you guys for joining us today, and everyone at home. Thank you so much. I always say I really think there is a really big difference between a boss and a leader. And I think all three of you are exemplary in showing, you know, the leadership that this industry is built up on. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for inviting us. This was really great to get dressed up and get out of pajamas.
Me both.